together as a diverse group of young leaders from across the globe to examine the risks of modern warfare and emerging technologies while celebrating historic milestones in disarmament.
If guided by strong ethical values, AI and emerging technologies can break down barriers, remove bias, and help us build smarter cybersecurity and fairer systems to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons.
Even in a world of increasing complexity, there's this huge network of youth from so many different walks of life who are passionate about a just, equitable world and willing to work towards the cause of disarmament.
I'm looking forward to connecting with young and engaged participants to create new ways to disarm this world and prevent a new autonomous arms race.
I hope that the forum will amplify the importance of the nuclear disarmament agenda by demonstrating its cross-cutting nature with other global peace and security priorities.
The forum is a global workspace where young people like us can connect nuclear risks with emerging technologies, AI, cyber, and space, and focus on the challenges to design fresh, inclusive solutions that demonstrate the thinking of younger generations.
I believe that this forum will be a constructive platform from which to elevate those voices.
I hope that this forum is an opportunity for us to reshape what youth involvement within the field of disarmament can look like.
I hope this forum will empower and educate us with the tools we need to go back to our communities and turn ideas into actions and hope into peace building.
I hope we come out of this with more than just talking points, but with actual insights, actionable recommendations, and things to do, and the possibility to act on them.
And I look forward to give my insights into that outcome document, which will be an inclusive document representing the youth from around the world.
Because in the end, we all want the same thing, to live in a more just world without violence and in true peace.
To the high-level opening of the Youth4Disarmament Forum. My name is Roberta Boyang. I'm German and Gambian, and I'll be your Master of Ceremony for today. Dear ambassadors, dear High Representative, dear speakers, youth participants, and colleagues, I think this is a very, very special occasion for us here to come together. And I would also like to greet our viewers online, which had the opportunity to join digitally. I think the video showcases the anticipation that has led up to this day. And this Youth Forum is a very, very special occasion because it's one of its kind. I think we have worked very hard for the past few months. We've learned together, we had trainings together, we worked on recommendations together. We were part of shaping the workshops that are taking place in this forum together. And I think this is a very, very special occasion. It shows a lot of trust that UN ODA has given young people in our abilities to meaningfully contribute to disarmament discourse. In the 2 upcoming days, participants will be working on a range of topics from thematic work regarding emerging technologies and weaponry to sessions discussing how we can structure the future of youth engagement within the disarmament field. And of course, we will also be working on our personal capacities and career opportunities within the field of disarmament. So it will truly be 2 very busy days, but I think they will be very fruitful and hopefully drive the role that youth can play within the field of disarmament. And to spread the message of this forum, I would like to encourage you to use the hashtags Y4D Forum and Youth4Disarmament when sharing information or pictures from the next 2 days. And all of this would have not been possible without the support of allies here within the UN system. And to start us off, I would like to give the word to High Representative Izumi Nakamitsu, who has been a champion for youth within the field of disarmament and will be guiding us as a first speaker.
Thank you very much. No, I would like to be guided by you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, and dear young participants, good morning. It is a greatest pleasure and honor for me to welcome you to this first ever UN Youth4Disarmament Forum. A landmark gathering, I think, that brings us together to explore the critical intersection between nuclear weapons and emerging technologies. Just 1 year ago, at the General Assembly's first committee, I always make a speech there, I shared a vision of a dedicated space for youth in disarmament. And that was the Disarmament Forum, where they can connect, lead, and inspire meaningful action. And today, just a year after, I am really happy to see that this vision has become a reality. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the government of the Republic of Korea for their generous support in making this forum a real possibility. So thank you very much. This forum comes at a pivotal moment. We are seeing technological change accelerate at a rapid pace, often, I think, outpacing our collective efforts to manage it. Global military spending also has reached unprecedented levels. I hope you all read this Secretary General's recent report. The level of expenditure last year, 2024, was $2.7 trillion, marking the 10th consecutive year of increase, as highlighted in the report, together with some concrete recommendations how to actually counter it. Now, this is very alarming. It's a very worrying situation. And behind each dollar spent on weapons, of course, lies a missed opportunity, funds taken away from education, climate action, human rights, health, and other pillars of lasting peace and sustainable development, SDGs. Yet, with every challenge comes an opportunity to rethink, to rebuild, and to renew our shared commitment to peace and security. Young people are already embracing this opportunity as they shape solutions to the risks posed by emerging technologies and nuclear weapons. Their vital contributions to advancing peace and security are increasingly recognized and appreciated, really, at the global policy level. This is reflected in multiple UN General Assembly resolutions on youth disarmament and non-proliferation, as well as in Security Council resolutions 2250, 2419, and 2535 on youth, peace, and security. Building on this normative foundation, the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs launched this Youth4Disarmament initiative in 2019 to connect, educate, and empower young people to lead efforts towards a world free from fear, armed violence, and nuclear threats. Now, today's forum makes a key milestone in this journey, demonstrating the initiative's growing impact. Through the program, we have reached member states and engaged over 500 young people around the world, amplifying their voices in disarmament efforts. Today, we're bringing together UNODA, Youth4Disarmament alumni, and young leaders from civil society, academia, and other organizations engaged in disarmament. Our goal is to foster collaboration and build lasting networks across these communities. That is what makes this forum truly unique. It is creating a global platform where young people can connect, communicate, and contribute to shaping disarmament policy. To all of the young participants here today, you are the driving force behind Youth4Disarmament Forum. From vital webinars and virtual webinars and the creation of a youth-led forum, think tank, to your contributions across 3 dynamic forum crews, including the development of a fully youth-driven outcome document, as you mentioned. Your ideas and leadership have shaped every step of this journey. I especially look forward to the forum's outcome document, which will reflect your insights and recommendations on addressing the complex linkages between nuclear weapons and emerging technologies. Your discussions this week will also chart practical ways forward, transforming innovation into solutions for peace and ensuring that young people remain central to shaping global security solutions. In closing, allow me to leave you with one reflection. Meaningful youth participation in multilateral discussions must become the norm, not the exceptions. We must ensure that young people, such as yourselves, are not just invited to the table, but are empowered to shape the agenda across disarmament dialogues, expert groups, and policy processes at every level. To support you to that end, we must expand membership and fellowship opportunities under UN ODA Youth4Disarmament Forum, enabling young leaders to work side by side with diplomats, scientists, civil society to co-create solutions that are bold, inclusive, and also future-oriented. I believe that UN Youth4Disarmament Forum should convene regularly, ideally every other year, as a dynamic space where young people can come together with member states, the United States, United Nations, and civil society and other partners. It offers a vital opportunity to take stock of progress in the disarmament field, shape policy, and speak fresh thinking and innovation to drive meaningful change. And as you know, that the theme that you will be discussing are also the themes that are being discussed by member states in the first committee. So there is already a natural direct linkages between what you're discussing, and that should really be fed into the member states' discussions as well. And we also have, as you know, many other programs to help you acquire the substantive knowledge and also the skills. For example, Youth Leadership Fund for Nuclear Weapons, Nuclear Disarmament. So we need to make sure that you will be able to tap into and then take advantage of various opportunities that we are beginning to offer to young people. Now, so I hope this forum is more than an event. It is a powerful testimony, I hope, of what is possible where young people lead with courage, creativity, and also conviction and passion as well. You're already protecting communities, challenging the status quo, and then building the foundations of a more peaceful, secure, and just world in your respective places. Let this forum become a launchpad for your ideas, your actions, and also your leadership. And that is simply because the future we all aspire to, which is a future free from fear and armed violence, as many of you have already mentioned, will be shaped by your vision, your voice, and your unwavering commitment to peace and your everyday actions. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a successful forum. Looking forward to the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the need for sustainable structures that allow for young people to engage long-term and meaningfully in foreign policy. And I hope that this forum will be an occasion for us to come together and work on strategies to do that. And on that note, I would also like to extend my thanks to the Republic of Korea for funding this program. I think within the 1 or 2 hours that we've sat together so far, we already noticed the big difference it makes in meeting in person and exchanging ideas versus meeting in a digital setting. And I would therefore like to extend my word to His Excellency Sun Shin Kim, the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta, for a very kind introduction. Yoshi Nakamitsu, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, and most importantly, dear youth participants. It is also my honor and privilege to deliver the opening remarks at this first ever UN Youth4Disarmament Forum. I wish to express my sincere appreciation to the UN ODA for its dedicated efforts in making this forum a reality. Indeed, I had a pleasure of attending the launching webinar of the forum about 4 months ago. It is therefore personally particularly meaningful and gratifying to see many young participants gathered here again in person today. I extend my warmest welcome to all of you. As Mr. Nakamitsu just briefly mentioned, when we, including myself, attend meetings of the UN, nearly every delegation begins with noting that the global security landscape has become more complex and uncertain than ever before. At the same time, it is often emphasized that the unprecedented and rapid development of emerging technologies, including AI, cyberspace, and outer space, has further complicated this landscape. Indeed, as a member of the Security Council for 2024 to 25, I myself have been addressing major global conflict issues over the past 2 years. Yet, recalling that we have not been able to make truly meaningful contributions to resolving these conflicts, I have personally felt a sense of powerlessness and frustration. There could be many factors behind the persistence of today's conflicts. Some might argue that the international order, whether unipolar or bipolar, has deviated from its stable structures. Others may say that the integration of emerging technologies into weapon system has rendered traditional deterrence theory obsolete. Still, others may contend that the so-called democratic peace theory, which posits that democratic nations are less likely to engage in armed conflict with one another, has proven invalid, and that the war of all against all, described by Thomas Hobbes, has returned. In these times of uncertainty, when the number of casualties from ongoing conflicts exceeds our collective capacity to respond, some may cautiously question whether engaging, empowering, and educating youth in the field of disarmament and non-proliferation, like today's forum, is politically correct or even realistically viable. Now let me turn to the case of Korea. Korea has vivid experience and history that attest to the importance and value of investing in youth, our future generation. As you know, Korea's economic prosperity, resilient democracy, and cultural creativity, all that you see today, were once the realm of the impossible when I was young back in the 1980s. Yet through contributions and significant investment in youth and education, despite the legacy of devastating Korean wars, the current divided peninsula, and the constant threats posed by a neighbor obsessed with the development of nuclear weapons, we created our own success story. I firmly believe that investment in youth through education and empowerment has been the true driving force behind the Korea we know today. This is why Korea has been promoting the biennial resolution titled Youth, Disarmament and Non-Proliferation since 2019. Through this resolution, we have emphasized the importance of young engagement, empowerment, and education in advancing disarmament and non-proliferation. To translate these commitments into correct action, Korea has organized various programs in close collaboration with the UNODA. For example, we hosted side events during the first committee of the 78th General Assembly and in 2022 on the margins of the 10th NPT Review Conference to facilitate discussions and strengthen the role of youth in disarmament. At the national level, we have been implementing the Korean Youth Envoys for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation program each year, engaging around 20 to 30 youth participants. They gain knowledge through lectures on topics such as nuclear weapons, space security, and AI in the military domain, and they develop policy proposals based on their studies. To emerge from this dark tunnel of an increasingly deteriorating global security environment, and we must return to the basics. We may well need to achieve urgent ceasefires in certain conflict zones to save lives and to build a lasting peace. We may well establish global norms governing the military applications of emerging technologies and strengthen the non-proliferation regime. Yet what we are witnessing now is that some of the shared goals and values, those we believe to be irreversible since the establishments of the UN, are being shaken. This is precisely why we must return to the basics. And in this journey, although it may take time, I believe it is our noble mandate to lead our young generations to connect, to empower, and to educate for the future. As Mr. Nakamitsu mentioned earlier, I too look forward to seeing the outcome documents of this forum. I'm also excited to read fresh insights and creative ideas it will contain. But above all, I would rather like to commend all our youth participants to have today for their sincere trials to reflect and discuss on the grave challenges facing humanity today. As a person with 3 decades of diplomatic experience, I place my hope in you. Once again, I thank all the participants for joining today. Korea remains firmly committed to engaging with, empowering, and educating youth in the fields of disarmament and non-proliferation, and will continue to promote international cooperation in this vital endeavor. I thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Permanent Representative, for your kind words. And I think, once again, I also thank you for your emphasis on the importance of including young people in all of these processes. We will now be continuing with the panel segment, and I will therefore be passing the floor to Ksenia Pinavskaya to moderate the next section. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joining us here in New York, but also to those who are joining us online via UN Web TV. Dear Excellencies, distinguished guests, and distinguished forum participants, it is a really true honor to moderate and participate in this high-level opening session panel segment of the first ever UN Youth4Disarmament Forum. In my opening remarks before we start the panel, I really would like to reflect briefly on the theme of the panel: nuclear weapons and emerging technologies' impact on disarmament and non-proliferation dynamics, to set the stage for our conversation today. The rapid pace of technological innovation, from artificial intelligence to quantum computers to cyber capabilities and space technologies, is really transforming the global security landscape faster than our policies can adapt. These developments bring both new risks, but also new opportunities for disarmament, non-proliferation, and international security more broadly. And 3 dynamics really stand out. First, speed. Technological acceleration is compressing decision-making time in nuclear policy processes. Information is analyzed in volumes and faster than ever, and reaction time is shrinking. That can increase the risk of error and escalation. But if governed responsibly, the same technologies can improve early warning systems, situational awareness, and crisis communication, helping decision makers actually making smarter and safer choices under pressure. Second dynamic is opacity. As algorithm, data systems, and digital infrastructures grow more complex, it's getting harder to interpret intent or verify compliance. Whether it's a black box or machine learning, or the secrecy of cyber operations, or ambiguity of space activities, opacity erodes trust. Yet greater transparency through shared standards, technical cooperation, and dialogue across different sectors can turn that opacity into opportunity to confidence building and responsible governance. The third dynamic is diffusion. Dual-use technologies, from cyber tools and commercial satellites to quantum sensors and additive manufacturing, are spreading to more actors and regions more than ever. That diffusion can lower the threshold of escalation. But it also opens space for inclusion, allowing the countries of global majority, emerging experts, civil society, private sector to play a greater role in verification, monitoring, and norm development in our field. Together, these dynamics, speed, opacity, and diffusion, alongside with other factors such as governance fragmentation, knowledge gaps, and accountability issues, show how technology is reshaping what we know of and how we practice nuclear policy. Addressing these challenges means engaging all stakeholders: governments, missions, private sector, civil society, scientists, youth, emerging experts, and investing in education, transparency, and cooperation so that innovation strengthens peace rather than undermines it. 80 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki and 55 years after the adoption of the NPT, our shared challenge is to adapt disarmament and non-proliferation policies and frameworks to the realities of the new technological and digital age, without losing sight of the humanitarian imperative at their core. So on this note, I would really like to introduce the distinguished experts on this panel that are here to discuss how emerging technologies are influencing disarmament and non-proliferation dynamics, risks they pose, and opportunities they present. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. His Excellency Ambassador Martinus van Schalkwyk, Deputy Permanent Representative of South Africa to the United Nations. His Excellency Ambassador Shigeru Uematsu, Deputy Permanent Representative of Japan to the United Nations. His Excellency Ambassador Thomas Goebel, Permanent Representative of Germany to the Conference of Disarmament in Geneva. Her Excellency Ambassador Alicia Buenrostro Maceo, Deputy Permanent Representative of Mexico to the United Nations. Mr. Nicolo Miotto, Project Assistant at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and Youth4Disarmament Forum participant, and Ms. Emma Sandifer, Program Coordinator at the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation and also Youth4Disarmament Forum participant. So before I open the floor for the first question, I would like to ask our speakers to keep your answers for the first round within 5-minute framework so we finish all on time. And now I would like to ask a first question to our first speaker, Ms. Emma Sandifer. So, Ms. Sandifer, in the current global landscape, or how Ambassador Sanjin correctly described it in his remarks, in the era of war of all against all, how do you see what key challenges do you see in terms of emerging technologies, and how these dynamics influence the non-proliferation, arms control, and disarmament, and how can international frameworks, together with the meaningful inclusion of youth, help address them?
Thank you, Ksenia. This is a very easy question to answer. But first, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, UN ODA hosts, and Youth4Disarmament colleagues, thank you for having me here to speak. I want to give a quick shout out to Tayaba, who couldn't join us today, but I'm honored to take her place in speaking to this distinguished crowd, and in an institution that's played such a pivotal role in the creation and sustainment of international peace, security, and multilateral cooperation. So thank you for inviting me to speak. Right now, the global landscape is shifting rapidly under our feet. This moment, marked by the accelerating pace of technological development and renewed global competition, forces us to take a hard look at the effectiveness and assumptions underpinning the existing arms control and disarmament efforts. Emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, cyber capabilities, autonomous weapon systems, and hypersonic missiles are reshaping military doctrines, blurring the line between peace and war, and raising profound concerns for global stability. These technologies introduce new risks such as accidental escalation, miscalculation, and systems vulnerabilities, all of which, as we are all aware, can lead to catastrophic consequences. At the same time, we are witnessing a concerning erosion of the arms control architecture that has helped maintain a stable nuclear status quo for decades. Key treaties have been suspended or allowed to lapse with no replacements being negotiated. Trust between major powers is fluctuating and deteriorating. Nuclear arsenals are being recklessly modernized rather than responsibly dismantled. In all, the world seems to be moving towards a more complex and fragile nuclear order, and as we all know, when it comes to nuclear weapons, fragility is the last thing that anyone wants. However, it is not too late to reverse this trajectory and set ourselves on the course for more responsible nuclear policymaking. Faced with these challenges, the role of international frameworks, cooperation, and shared understandings, such as those formulated in these very halls and in forums such as this, is more vital than ever. We need a revitalized multilateral approach, one that not only updates and strengthens our toolkit for engaging in sustainable arms control, but one that also integrates responsible regulation for emerging technologies into our disarmament efforts. The solutions found in the 20th century fit 20th century problems, but not those of today. Today, we need an updated strategy, and we are gathered here together right now because the fundamental factor required for this updated 21st century strategy is one that we do not see in the past, and that is meaningful inclusion of the youth. Not just tomorrow's leaders, young people are today's innovators, activists, and thinkers, bringing fresh ideas to the table about how to organize and advocate in an increasingly digital and interconnected world. If we want a safer, more peaceful world, we must have institutionalized pathways for youth participation in disarmament diplomacy. Anyone who looks around this room at the fantastic collection of engaged and expert youth participants must acknowledge that diplomatic efforts that fail to incorporate the perspectives of the youth would fall woefully short of creating durable, effective, and most importantly, nuanced solutions. In conclusion, the challenges we face today are real and they are urgent, but they are not insurmountable. By modernizing our international toolkit, addressing the challenges posed by emerging technologies, and including youth in the process in a meaningful, institutionalized way, we can build a more peaceful, secure, and equitable world. Thank you.
For your remarks. And now I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Uematsu. So, Ambassador, from your perspective at the Permanent Mission of Japan to the UN in New York, what issues related to emerging technologies and nuclear weapons are of greatest concern in current discussions, and how is Japan engaging on these issues? And looking at these debates from New York point of view, what role do you see for emerging experts to meaningfully contribute to shaping solutions?
Thank you very much for giving me this topic, and also I'd like to say that I'm very pleased to be participating in this forum, and I'm very glad to see all young people who are very much interested in these very important topics. And thank you very much. And in the interest of time, I just go to the topic of these questions. I think the topic of emerging technology has been drawing increasing attention, especially in the context of international peace and security. Even within the United Nations, various forums have been actively discussing these issues, including the Security Council's high-level open debate on artificial intelligence and international peace and security last September under the presidency of Republic of Korea. Then Japan appreciates this initiative. When we talk about emerging technologies, one major concern is the speed of development, as this has been already mentioned, but there are growing calls, including from the UN Secretary General for regulation, but the pace of change is so fast, and the governments and the regulators often struggle in keeping up. Even among engineers and scientists, understanding can differ on this technology. So this makes it harder to discuss how we can manage this technology effectively. Another key point is that technology is neutral. So its impact depends on how humans use it. A single technology can be applied for harmful or beneficial purposes, but overly strict regulation could also stifle innovation that benefits people's lives. So how should we deal with these technologies? First, Japan believes that meaningful discussions on regulations require a multi-stakeholder approach involving not only governments, the UN, but also industry, academia, and civil society. Also, all states with key technologies should take part. Without broad participation, any framework on regulation will lack both effectiveness and legitimacy. The second, given the fast pace of innovation, rigid legal frameworks that takes years to negotiate are often unrealistic. That is why Japan values soft law approaches, such as political commitments, voluntary guidelines, and best practices, which allow flexibility and can evolve as technology changes. At present, there are no international norms or consensus-based frameworks addressing the link between nuclear weapons and AI. However, related discussions are already taking place in the FIRST Committee and the UN Disarmament Commission. Many countries have also expressed voluntary commitments. Japan supports initiatives like the Responsible AI in the military domain, led by the Republic of Korea and the Netherlands, as well as political declaration on responsible military use of AI and autonomy. These initiatives reflect principles that Japan fully supports, such as preventing AI from contributing to WMD proliferation, maintaining human control and judgment in all nuclear decision-making, ensuring compliance with international law, including the UN Charter, etc. So now let me turn to the role of emerging experts, especially those developing new technologies. As I mentioned earlier, discussions relating to how to regulate emerging technologies must be inclusive and multi-stakeholders. Therefore, I would like to encourage emerging experts to actively participate in such discussions. This is a long-term challenge that requires sustained engagement. That young participants here represent a digital native generation. You understand both the benefits and risks of AI and other emerging technologies. I encourage you to stay engaged, collaborate across disciplines, and seek concrete and responsible solutions. Japan, together with the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs, supports the development of young leaders through the Youth Leader Fund for World Without Nuclear Weapons. We are pleased that today's moderator, Ms. Ksenia Parbaskaya, and other participants such as Ulia Richard from France and Ms. Victoria Guillermo from Brazil are alumni of this first YLF Comfort. And we really hope that they will continue to play an active role in this important field. Thank you.
And thank you so much for bringing up Youth Leader Fund. I think it's also very important that these initiatives do not kind of leave isolated, but actually, people, same people, different people, meet within those initiatives. And, it's really nice after last year being in Hiroshima to meet my friends from the wildlife here in this forum. So thank you for those opportunities. We're very grateful. The next question I have is to Mr. Niccolò Miotta. To dive a little bit deeper into the topic. So as we enter an era of AI, hypersonic weapons, and increasingly complex space systems, what risks do you see at the intersection of human-machine interaction and nuclear decision-making, and what measures could help mitigate those risks? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ksenia, for your question. And let me start by telling a story from a different era, the Cold War, to illustrate what can go wrong when human-machine interaction does not go as planned in the nuclear domain. It is 9 November 1979. Missile warning systems in the United States detect what appears to be a large-scale Soviet nuclear attack. Within seconds, high-level officials are informed. Bomber and missile forces go on full alert. After a verification process lasting about 6 minutes, it is concluded that there is no attack. It was a false alarm. The cause? the accidental loading of a test scenario, a war game tape, into an automated warning display. During those 6 minutes, only human judgment and the cross-checking of information prevented catastrophe. In my view, this historical example highlights very well two central issues concerning human-machine interaction in the nuclear domain. The first is that human judgment plays a crucial role in preventing escalation. The second is that beyond potential technical failures, we must also consider the impact of human mistakes. Even when machines operate as designed, there is still room for human error, and such error can be as simple as uploading the right file to the wrong computer system. Now, let's come back to 2025. We live in a fast-paced environment, overwhelmed by enormous amounts of information, often incomplete, sometimes ambiguous. Yet, decisions must be made, and made faster than ever before. To navigate these challenges, humans increasingly rely on complex technologies to analyze data and maintain situational awareness. And this is happening in the nuclear domain as well. However, how confident are we that this growing reliance on technology always produces positive results? In reality, achieving successful human-machine interaction in the 21st century is proving to be a major challenge. For example, preliminary findings from a recent MIT study show that the excessive use of AI to analyze data might be eroding humans' critical thinking skills. Other research from universities and think tanks has also highlighted that technological complexity can amplify human biases in decision-making. So let me ask you a question. If something like the 1979 false alarm happened today or in the near future, would decision makers still be able to critically analyze information in an environment which is driven by increasing speed and automation? Well, of course, it is not an easy question to answer. It's quite complicated. But what it is clear, however, is that the risks of something going wrong in the nuclear domain must be taken seriously. There's no doubt about this. Miscalculation, misperception, escalation are some of the potential risks stemming from a flawed human-machine interaction process in the nuclear domain. And here we come to the last part of your question, Ksenia. What can we do about these risks? Well, a first step is to raise awareness of them in multilateral fora, like we're doing today, to speak about them. And I was very glad to hear that everyone is looking forward to reading our outcome document. So I will give a bit of a spoiler and mention one of the things that we thought of as a policy recommendation. So together with the other participants here present in the room, we developed some policy recommendations towards this direction. And one of them, and here I look at our dear ambassadors, is that we call upon UN member states to establish a dedicated working group on emerging technologies and nuclear risks. First of all, to deepen a shared understanding of these security challenges, and second, to develop confidence-building measures to address them. And now, Ksenia, let me conclude by stressing something that I believe it is really important. When we talk about emerging technologies and nuclear risks, we are not speaking about science fiction. It is something real that happened in the past and can happen again. Today, in an era of rapid technological change, the risks are greater than ever, and so is our shared responsibility to address them. Thank you for your attention.
Nicolo, for your presentation. I think it was a really great even storytelling on why these risks matter and what we can do about them. I especially like the shameless plug-in of our outcome document. So if you're ever coming to NGO statement, please do come to listen about, well, first what we think about that, but also to the side event where we present the outcome document. So if you have time, we'd be very happy to see you there. So the next question I have to Ambassador Maceo. So Mexico has long championed the humanitarian approaches to disarmament and played critical role in advancing the TPNW and other humanitarian risks platforms. And in light of the accelerating pace of technological innovation and the growing role of AI, autonomous systems, and security, how can humanitarian considerations and international law help shape responsible behavior and accountability in this evolving technological landscape? And how can we ensure that kind of both discussions can coexist with each other, emerging technologies and humanitarian perspectives? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. Let me start by congratulating UNODA and the Youth4Disarmament initiative for convening the first edition of this very timely forum, and of course for inviting Mexico to take part in this event. The meaningful involvement of youth in multilateral processes is an issue that we take in Mexico very seriously. We have made a consistent effort to include young people as part of our delegations in every General Assembly for many, many years already. And they become a real part of the official delegation, delivering statements, convinced that their voices, creativity, and vision, all of yours, are essential to the future of multilateralism and disarmament. And it's very timely because it's great to see such a very good number of young people interested in these issues. Let me tell you the story of my country just very briefly in terms of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. But it gets back even to the mere creation of the UN back in 1945. And if you look into the history of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, you will always see Mexico coming with a resolution, with new ideas, with the Treaty of Tlatelolco that you might have studied, the free zone of nuclear arms in Latin America. And even yesterday, I signed a resolution that it's to be registered, which is on nuclear weapons and artificial intelligence. And we in Mexico, we believe that human beings should be behind any decision when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons. So in response to the question, allow me to share that Mexico's approach to disarmament has always been rooted in humanitarian principles, in the recognition that security cannot be achieved through weapons that threaten the survival of mankind. And at some point, we were even forced to do something outside the United Nations a few years ago because we didn't find the echo in the UN, and we brought the forum outside when organizing a series of events on the humanitarian impact of a nuclear disaster. The humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons, for example, guided our leadership in convening one of the conferences on the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons, which paved the way, and this is the one we organized outside the UN, for the negotiation of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. It was our PRs in Geneva that conveyed this idea after Mexico had organized this conference on the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons. And in the end, we had now a treaty on the prohibition of the use of nuclear weapons. These same principles guided our reflection on autonomous weapon systems, including the integration of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. The accelerating pace of technological innovation presents both, of course, opportunities, but also profound risks. In the military sphere, artificial intelligence could distort decision-making, compress reaction times, and blur the line between human judgment and automated processes. There is a film of a submarine, a U.S. submarine, in which they have an instruction of launching a missile, and there are two people there. And the captain, in the end, was doubting about doing that. And time went by, the electronic system was shut down, and in the end, The second person on board said, we have this instruction and we need to do it. But the captain said, no, even though if it's an instruction, we need to check again. And as time has passed by and there was no electronics inside the submarine, in the end, they were able to connect and were able to start to communicate with the headquarters, and they found out that there was no need to launch the nuclear weapon or the nuclear missile. So in the end, that's why human beings need to be behind any decision making when it comes to any use of nuclear weapons or mass destruction. So in this evolving landscape, humanitarian considerations and international law are essential anchors to ensure that human dignity and accountability remain at the center of security policies, particularly in ongoing multilateral discussions. Mexico believes that international law, including international humanitarian law, with its fundamental rules of distinction, proportionality, and precaution, offers a solid framework for asserting how new technologies can be responsibly designed and used. Yet, law alone is not enough. We also need an ethical and political commitment to preserve meaningful human control over critical decisions, especially those that could lead to catastrophic humanitarian consequences. And this brings us to a key question. What can we do at the multilateral level, here together? As a first step, discussions on disarmament and emerging technologies must follow an inclusive process where all states are able to bring their concerns and proposals to the table. Humanitarian perspectives can help shape norms and confidence-building measures that are not only technically sound, but also morally grounded. The participation of civil society, academia, and especially youth is indispensable, not only to bring creativity and foresight to the debates, but also because many young people like you will continue to be the developers of these very technologies. And for its part, let me just finish. Mexico has recently, as I said, brought to the first committee a draft resolution addressing the possible risks of integrating artificial intelligence into the command and control of nuclear weapons. The resolution seeks to promote international awareness and dialogue to safeguard human control and prevent unintended or unauthorized use. As technology continues to reshape our world, our collective responsibility is to ensure that innovation serves humanity and not the other way around. That is the humanitarian imperative that must continue to guide disarmament in the 21st century, according to the vision of my country, Mexico. Thank you.
And also for highlighting how Mexico has been very productive with putting forward a lot of initiatives and actually achieving a lot on them. I think it's not every country can, I guess, say that about in the settings of disarmament. So the next, I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Goebel. So from your point of view in Geneva and Conference on Disarmament, how emerging technologies influencing debates on nuclear disarmament, and where do you see the greatest opportunities and risks in these areas? And in that setting, how can emerging experts' perspective be integrated in these discussions? The floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Xenia. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, for the invitation. I'm very honored to take part in this first high-level opening session of Youth for Disarmament. You see, for me, this year is the first committee I'm taking part in. Probably it will be the last one. I have been working in the field of disarmament for 25 years now, and I have to admit that there remains still a lot of challenges before us, a lot of open questions, and it's indeed certainly necessary. We need you. We need an engaged and an active use in order to give the answers we have failed to give so far. And I think that's also why my country is heavily engaged in empowering youth and in promoting the participation of youth in disarmament. And I'm really encouraged to see all of you here around the table discussing and engaging on this issue. As far as the topic and the question at hand is concerned, so nuclear weapons and emerging technologies, I'm still confident that as far as this is concerned, we can still somewhat prepare the ground for you. That's what we do, and we have to do so because it is an urgent matter, as we have already learned. New technologies being much faster than our responses, and Xenia mentioned already the high pace and others as well. Let me join others, and I'm looking forward to see what your answers will be in the report, because I think indeed we have to join forces. We are some months away only from the NPT review conference next year here in New York. We are following this very, very closely from Geneva. Most of the missions from Geneva are taking part in this conference. And I think it is essential, it will be essential for the NPT community to develop exactly a better understanding and increased awareness and expertise of emerging technologies and their potential impacts. These requires integrating the expertise of experts from the civil and private sector and from youth. Let me add, by increasing awareness of the potential impacts of emerging technologies, the NPT community can prepare the ground for specific and meaningful steps to reduce associated risks, including a joint commitment, and that's very important, and it has been raised already by my Mexican colleague, a joint commitment by the nuclear weapon states to keep a human in the loop in decisions that could lead to the use of a nuclear weapon, and to refrain from any interference with nuclear command, control, and communication. We've heard already several examples. There are many of them. I'm thinking of the Russian officer who in 1979 also took a very lonesome decision to not to react to what seemed to be a nuclear attack. The resolution of Mexico has already been mentioned. We very much appreciate that the topic has been brought to the first committee with this resolution. However, the devil is always in the detail. We will see. The discussions are going on. We will see if my delegation can support the resolution as such, but it's certainly an important move. As my Japanese colleague already said, technology is neutral as such, and so we see also very clearly that in some contexts, emerging technologies offer opportunities to improve and further develop arms control and verification, as well as to benefit the peaceful application of nuclear energy and technology, contributing to implementing the NPT and to improving global stability. There are many examples. So, for example, and we've heard it already also by some of the introductory remarks, cyber capabilities could certainly significant offer opportunities for enhancing nuclear arms control, improve verification mechanisms, enabling more efficient and accurate monitoring of treaty compliance. So there are opportunities. Also, when we come to AI-driven algorithms that can process a vast amount of data from satellite sensors and other sources to detect potential treaty violations or the development of unauthorized nuclear activities. Not speaking about the many space applications which are already playing a critical role in implementing arms control treaties. So although there are as we see it, also a lot of opportunities which has to be discussed and which has to be carefully made use of. You put an emphasis to the Geneva perspective. So perhaps let me just tell you that in 2023, under the German CD presidency, we tried to tackle the question of emerging technologies and AI for the first time, also in the CD. We had some, I would say, good and substantial questions, but discussions. But the meeting, unfortunately, by the request of one member state, had to be held in an informal setting, so no one could follow these discussions. I think while the majority of the member states, the delegations of the CD certainly realizes the importance of the issue, and it's a little bit difficult for me to say that as a CD ambassador, but I think the CD is probably not the best way to bring these things forward. Unfortunately, with its unflexible structures and cemented agenda and the consensus requirement, it's difficult to make progress here. There are certainly much more promising approaches. Some have been mentioned already by my Japanese colleague. I think most prominent is certainly the REAIM process, where we have seen again the Netherlands and Korea. We have been tabling the resolution on artificial intelligence in the military domain this year, which foresees this time, decides to convene informal exchanges in Geneva to further share practices, observations, and conclusions. Germany, together with its partners in the Stockholm Initiative, we have put forward, we have introduced a paper on emerging technologies as well for the NPT, where we formulate a number of recommendations for the review conference. And as time is running out, just let me point to two things in this recommendation. It is clearly calling for that NPT should further engage and promote education and support capacity building on new technologies on nuclear issues, and special emphasis should be placed on fostering the involvement of younger generations and integrating balanced representation. And I think that's what you are doing here, and we are grateful for that. And as I said at the beginning, we are looking forward to your results. We are at the beginning of an intensive discussion, and you should be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Goebel, and also for being excited for our outcome document and our ideas. We'll be sure to share it with you as well. And last but not least, we have Ambassador Van Schalkwyk. So, Ambassador, as a country with a notable history of voluntary renouncing nuclear weapons program, South Africa offers really important perspective, I think, on the link between technology, development, and disarmament. So from your viewpoint, how can emerging technologies be harnessed to advance, not hinder nuclear disarmament? And how can capacity building and equitable access to those technologies actually empower countries and young professionals from those countries to play a more active role in shaping the policies of disarmament and non-proliferation? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and also thank you to the organizers. Thank you to Korea, the Republic of Korea, for sponsoring this. I think it's such an important initiative to undertake and to involve youth in a meaningful way and in discussions that are so crucial to your own futures. As you've rightly pointed out, South Africa voluntarily, it developed its own nuclear weapons and it voluntarily disarmed, and that was done in favor of following a peaceful path towards its peace and security. I come from a continent where 65% of the population is considered youth, people under 35. So our continent has a huge stake in what will be happening in the next 30 to 40 years when it comes to nuclear disarmament. I want to challenge you a little bit today, and I'm going to step away from the more classical approach of just presenting to you, but I want to challenge you to think about yourselves, and I want to personalize the issue a little. Do you see yourselves as good human beings? Do you have empathy with your neighbor? Do you think your neighbor has a right to exist? and that your actions should be such that they have a similar chance to development, sustainable development, and fulfilling themselves? And do you think that should be based, that assurance and peace and security, on the basis of a bed of nuclear weapons? Because you're speaking in your discussions as if you are accepting nuclear weapons as a given, and there can be nothing done about it. You're talking about risk, you're talking about how to better manage them, how to make decision-making in how you manage nuclear weapons safer. But you're not challenging nuclear weapons. So are you accepting that this is appropriate, that weapons that will cause unacceptable and catastrophic humanitarian consequences if there is a detonation, is that the basis on which you are willing to build your futures? You'll hear a lot about deterrence. We need these weapons because it's a dangerous world out there. We need to deter the other side. Deterrence is not a strategy. Deterrence is a shortcut to suicide. So I'll be honest with you. You need to think about this is your futures. Next 20 years, we're not here. You are here. You'll be the policy makers. You'll be the ones that will discuss this. So to bring it back, South Africa really regards nuclear technology as important for sustainable development, for peaceful use. We also regard the involvement of women and young people as crucial to that, and to bring into that play also scientific development of peaceful uses, be it in the agricultural field, medical field, or power generation. So the focus on non-proliferation and the negative role it sometimes plays in terms of utilizing these technologies for our sustainable development is an important factor to, because the fear is if you are misusing it, you're creating a weapon. So we are part in Mexico as well of nuclear weapon-free zones, where all of our states have undertaken not to develop nuclear weapons. Many of our states have signed the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which we've also explicitly undertaken never to have nuclear weapons or to utilize nuclear power or nuclear technologies to acquire such weapons. So where does new technologies come in? I think everything that has been said we can agree with, in the sense that it provides an additional layer of risk that is not manageable if you allow emerging technologies to play such a prominent role in how these weapons are managed. But I think your question should be further: how do you use these technologies towards disarmament? Not how you use them towards managing these weapons because you find them acceptable. If you find them acceptable, then do consider what will happen when they are used. And I think that's our premise that we use a lot in terms of the TPNW and how we approach from South Africa's perspective when it comes to nuclear, and why we are so insistent on this nuclear disarmament. From our perspective, there are no safe hands when it comes to nuclear weapons. One nuclear weapon is as dangerous as 100 or 1,000 nuclear weapons. And the world is awash with 9 states possessing more than 12,000 nuclear-capable devices. So does that make your futures better or worse? And do you think you can use technology to manage those weapons? Or do you think you should use technology to make sure that disarmament takes place? And that we work towards a way where countries see that making or threatening to destroy each other is not a way of providing for your own security. In terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of, when everybody speaks about emerging technologies, ask what you're talking about. The jargon was always cyber and cyber technology. It's now evolved to AI. But there's a lot more than that. There's blockchain, there's quantum computing, there's synthetic biology. There's a lot of emerging technologies. And we use this as a broad term, but I think each of us has something different in mind when we speak about it. Maybe mostly AI, because AI has seen the most investment of late. And just to give you an idea, AI is not going away. It's not going anywhere. It's just becoming huge. The amount of money being invested in it is massive in terms of, and I saw a figure the other day that the US as a government has spent in the last 40 decades what they've spent on all the highways, all the infrastructure that they've built. The money that's been spent by private sector and other governments in the last couple of years on AI is more than that, than they've spent in 40 years. So you can imagine how fast and how quickly this is growing in this capacity. Link that to nuclear weapons, and we have a major problem. So we are in line with other views that a human should always be in line, should be this should not be used in a way that is to the detriment of humanity. But how do we prevent that? And that's up to you, how you see technology and how you use it for the benefit of all. Banning it is not an option. Not using it is not an option. We need to use it in a favorable way. But take away the risk of accidental or on purpose detonations of weapons, and therefore you need to take the weapons away. So I'm going to leave it at that. For South Africa, that is what we will be also strongly be agitating for again. When we have the NPT review conference in terms of nuclear disarmament having to take place, because the other countries have committed to not proliferate and not to develop weapons. So we need to see that agreement that was reached, that be honored, and that we do not sidestep that, and that you sacrifice your futures on a very tenuous and a very thin layer of perceived peace and security that you think you have because those weapons exist. Let me leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambassador, for this very powerful challenge, I think. And, every one of us here in this room, I think, should think about those issues, because these are very important debates that are happening in this very building. And that's something we also should consider in outcome document we produce, and statements we make, and speeches we make, or even the conversations we have here. In the interest of time, I would like to close the panel at this stage, but I think with this powerful message, it's not really lost, but really a very strong closing. Before I give the floor back to Roberta, I just wanted to say a few kind of reflections, that the few ideas that I think stood out in this discussion today, which was very rich in terms of thoughts. What stood out is the need to modernize disarmament and non-proliferation frameworks responsibly. So to do the responsible nuclear policy making and involving different stakeholders in that policy making. Of course, the importance of embedding humanitarian principles and always having human in the loop, on the loop, out of the loop. I think there are many concepts there, and you can Google all of them, but having human in that knot is very, very important. And last but not least, bridging generations and disciplines and sectors, whether it's civil society, private sector, emerging experts, missions, governments. This is very important, because this is not the problem of one sector, it's a global problem that we all need to solve together. On this note, I would like to express appreciation to the UN ODA, to the Government of the Republic of Korea, our distinguished speakers, Master of the Ceremony, and everyone who is in this meeting today and watching us online for attending and tuning in. And let us leave this panel with a clear ambition to ensure that technological progress strengthens nuclear policy and nuclear practices, not undermines them. The choices we make today will actually determine whether innovation becomes a source of division or a foundation for lasting peace. And I think this is our choice to make. Thank you once again, and I hand it back to wonderful Master of the Ceremony, Ms. Roberta Boyan. The floor is yours.
Dear ambassadors, dear panelists and participants, thank you for joining the high-level opening of the Youth4Disarmament Forum. I think it was able to emphasize the importance of the topics that we will be discussing in the next 2 days. And I hope that we can make the most of it, not just in the forum itself, but also to take the messages further beyond and reshape the way that youth work can look like in the disarmament sector. We will be continuing at 11:30 here in the same room with the expert panel discussion on destabilizing effects of AI and information and communications technology on nuclear stability. Thank you.